Ngokusho kombiko ka-2019 wezinhlangano i-World Health Organization ne-UNICEF babalelwa ku-2.2 billion abantu abangakwazi ukuthola amanzi ahlanzekile okuphuza. Lesi mbukeli isibalo esithusayo njengoba amanzi eyisidingo siyisekelo sempilo yomuntu kanye nenhlanzeko yakhe. Kanti-ke lokhu kukhombise isidingo esikhulayo samanzi kubantu, kodwa ngaphandle kokuthi abantu abawathola amanzi aphuzwayo, ukushoda kwamanzi sekuyinto ekhathazayo kakhulu. Which begs the question, is the world running out of water? What can be done to address this particular issue? Le eminye imibuzo esizobe sinayo siyidingida la namuhla ohlelweni i-Asikhulume Let's Talk nolungunqa phambili. Sikubingelele mbukeli sikwamukela ohlelweni, igama lami ngubongiwe umakhumalo wakwaZwane. Asike sikukhumbuze ke mbukeli ukuthi ningaba yingxenye lolu hlelo ngokusishayela ucingo sizwe umbono noma imibuzo wakho. Inombolo zethu zocingo 0117140677 noma 0117140678. Kanti ungabuye futhi usithole kumakhasi ethu okuxhumana ku-Twitter @SABC Izindaba kanye na ku-Facebook SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kubelula ke mbukeli sicela uqale ngo#Asikhulume #SABC News bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma umbono wakho. Asikhulume. Mbukeli umbiko we-Blue Drop Watch kahulumeni waseNingizimu Afrika udweba isithombe esibi ngemithombo yamanzi kanye nengqalasizinda yamanzi yaseNingizimu Afrika. Lokhu kuphinde kwafakazwlwa umbiko wenhlangano i-South African Human Rights Commission eveze ukuthi umasipala waseTshwane uhlulekile ukunakekela inqalasizinda yamanzi nokwenza ukuthi kubhebhetheke isifo se-cholera nesahamba nemiphefumulo engu-31 eHammanskraal. Sikhuluma nje umongameli wezwe has instructed the SIU to probe into the Roy wastewater treatment tender. Inkinga yamanzi ke igcwele iNingizimu Afrika yonke mbukeli, ake sizwe imbono yenu ngokwentuleka kwamanzi.
Amanzi ahamba unexpected. Whenever we need to bath, aswathola amanzi. So thina sazi ukuthi yini inkinga, and no government akasinikeze this thing ukuthi amanzi akasalethi.
Sikhathazekile ngamanzi, abantu abadala badinga amanzi every day, badinga ukugeza, abantwana bamunyaya amabhodlela, siyasafara kakhulu. Esicela nje ukuthi uhulumeni ngoba kunamarumo ukuthi amanzi akhona nje, kunabantu abazama ukusabotage abanye abantu ene water is life. We can't survive without water.
Inkinga yamanzi kakhulu kabi uba manje ingane emele ze toilet azikwazi kuya, yazi kungcono ukulilo shedding negesi lapho basilimaza kakhulu. Ngcono shedding igesi, amanzi nje hayi basilimaza inkosi impela.
No, amanzi siwacela nje abe khona ngokuthi siphila ngawo ema toilet siphila kanzima. Kunokuthi kumele ukuthi se toilet ungena kanzima, ngeke ungene amanzi angekho e-toilet, angeke upheke amanzi angekho.
Ugovernment kokuqala uyasileka kwamanzi negesi, so obviously ukuze ugovernment asinikeze attention mele size silwe, and remember ukuthi masilwa kanje still we are destroying our country ne. So sacela kuhulumeni kakhulu ukuthi amanzi kokuqala it's a basic need. So if like sikhona ukuhlala boma 3-4 days 2 weeks ngalamanzi, so vele we should act, and of which kokunye destroy kanezinye izinto.
Leyo bekuyimbono yababukeli, sibonge kakhulu ngembono yenu. Ukudingida kabanzi ngalokho nomthelela ikakhulukazi kosomabhizinisi nabantu bonke asamukele ihambele zethu. Mbukeli umnumzane Dhesigen Naidoo obuya e-Presidential Climate Commission no Professor Sylvester Mpandeli obuya e-Water Research Commission kanye nomnumzane Benoit Le Roy ongumphathi omkhulu e-South African Water Chamber. We reached out to the Ministry of Water and Sanitation as well as Rainwater. There was no one available. Let's get into the conversation now. Ngizoqala ngawe Professor Sylvester. Asiqale ngokuthi firstly, how bad is the issue of water scarcity in South Africa? Ngoba siyezwa from different places abantu besho ukuthi abanawo amanzi, but how bad is it?
Yes, it's bad, but manageable. There are three issues that we need to consider or to look at it. Firstly is the water availability, water quality, infrastructure, and human capacity issues. Those are main contributing factors. And we have got the responsibility to make sure that, we provide water to the South African public, good quality water. There are various technologies that have been developed so far. What we need to do is to implement those technologies across the country. And as a result of that, we also need to make sure that the wastewater that has been discharged needs to be brought back into the system, so that we can channel such kind of water to other economic sectors. You know that the agriculture sector uses 62% of our water resources. But we cannot continue with the business as usual scenario. We need to assist the sector to reduce the water consumption, but also making sure that they produce more food with less water.
I'm going to come back to that because it's one of the contributing factors. But let me come to you, Benoit. One of the things that we've heard from the viewers who were speaking, saying that for them, they, impacted by load shedding, but at the same time, the water issues are quite, severe, more than not having electricity. And I wonder, are we running out of water? Do we have enough water for the supply?
Yes, we have sufficient water because we're wasting 50% of it in so-called non-revenue water. So in physical leaks, unaccounted for, and a certain amount of billing and theft. But 80 to 90% of the non-revenue water, generally speaking, is due to physical leaks. So the dams are full. It's nationally, we're in a very healthy situation. It's the infrastructure that was alluded to that's in a very poor condition. And to put it back, for Gauteng, for example, to put it back to where it needs to be is between 50 and 100 billion rand. So Joburg's water assets on their own are about 112 billion, of which 50 to 60% is a bulk distribution for water. The rest is sanitation and the sewage works. But also a high percentage of this in South Africa, so more than half, has less than 5 years life left in it. And 5 years is optimistic. So we're wasting water that we preciously harness. But also what's happening is we've got vulnerable systems in place. So what's happening with climate change is that we're getting different weather patterns, more intense weather patterns, downpours, hail, etc. And we need to adjust to this, and we're getting high evaporation in our water resources, who will get challenged as things get hotter and drier. And also where the rain falls is changing. So we need the smartest systems, the smartest scientists, we need the smartest operators, we need the smartest people within our municipal services to be able to manage these. And quite honestly, leaking 50% of the water is not only not smart, it's highly inefficient. So we have to become very efficient. So we need an efficiency drive, and we're double the non-revenue water of the rest of the world that has piped water.
So you and Prof basically seem to be alluding to the big issue that we've all spoken about, and that is the issue of infrastructure, the issue of technology. How do we begin to adjust to what we are seeing right now? And Dhesigen, that's how I segue to you, because sitting in the Presidential Climate, Climate Change Commission, that is one of the key things that we keep hearing about, that the world needs to adjust to climate change. We're seeing different weather patterns. We're seeing quite a lot happening, and it's now time for the required action to come into play. I wonder then, from your vantage point, firstly, how much of what we are seeing is as a result of climate change?
Well, good morning, and good morning to Benoit and to Sylvester, and happy to join you. Climate change is a threat accelerator. It's doing two things simultaneously. One is it's making things worse. So these extreme weather events have become pervasive, they've become more intense, and unfortunately, they've become really regular. The second factor associated with that is as the average temperatures get higher and higher, not only does the evaporation index increase, but the fragility of our infrastructure is becoming more and more obvious. So definitely it's a threat multiplier. I would argue beyond the threat multiplier, it's a fundamental causation factor in many instances. But I want to add to this, the one issue is infrastructure and our inability to maintain the infrastructure that we have and to organize for the longevity of our assets is a big problem. But an equally big problem is an inability to implement some really smart policies. I mean, we've got a law that is still celebrated in the world as one of the best water laws that have been in existence anywhere. And we're sitting down the line, some 27 years, having not fully implemented some of the fundamental aspects of that law. And it's really coming home to bite us. We haven't done the allocation reform that we needed to, so that water is spread more evenly inside the system in a way that we can afford it. We haven't empowered the governance structures that we wanted, like the CMA, so that there's a local appreciation of the problems and the implementation of the right policies for those environments. So, and that's also coming back.
Pardon me for coming in there. Is it a skills issue then, or what is it?
There is a skills component, but the skills becomes confusing, because if you look at some of the really brilliant examples all over the world where water is managed really, really well, if you look at the likes of Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, you're finding South Africans running those systems. So it isn't that South Africa has an inability to generate the skills that's needed for this problem. The problem might be that we have an inability to maintain the skills that are required to engage this problem. The second part of the skills issue is that there's a very different skills base required to manage water in the 21st century than it was 50 years ago. And we're not catching up with that. It's not only about engineers and technicians. It is the behavioral issues, it's the financial issues, it's the accounting issues. And half of that non-revenue water that Benoit is talking about is an inability to bill and to collect. So it's not just the...
I want us to touch on that. Pardon me for coming in there. I want us to touch on that when we come back, Prof, because it's really one of the big issues. Do we really have the means, or is it because we don't have the right people, or is it because we do not even have a plan to manage this particular infrastructure? Because in every single bit of a conversation in this country, we talk about infrastructure. But does it look like there's a plan to be able to fix this? Mbogela, siyabuya njengamanje. Kanti mbukeli uma uqeda ukuhlanganyela kanye nathi sikhuluma ngodaba lwamanzi angekho, ake sibheke ukuthi nithini einkundleni zokuxhumana. Usamge Mabasa uthi kunzima kakhulu dadewethu, okubuhlungu thina basemakhaya amadamu angakithi okudonswa kuwona amanzi aya emadolobheni, kepha yithina esingenawo nhlobo. Ngingowasendwedwe kwaNompanda, idamu lethu iHazelmere ompompi badlala izingane, amanzi sawagcina kuzoba ukhetho olweminyaka awaphindanga abakhona, imoto ifika beyithanda mayithanda ayingene emgwaqeni engathi okuyi challenge enkulu ukuthutha usuka lapho. Usithembiso uthi engwavuma konakele, ayikho ke nemfula kule ndawo, sike sizwe bathi baphuza nezinkomo kwezinye izindawo, thina sihalela ngisho ukuphuza nazo. Umusa uthi hayibo ejozini awekho wona, even eikoleni zakhona ngisababaza engikubone high school yakhona kwaGedleza ezwile Nkosi high usizi akunamanzi, and bake balale khona abafundi imatric abaphathi mandla abaqinisiqakala. Usizo uthi msakazi mina ngihlala lapha eNanda Ohlange, cabanga kule ndawo eyenqalabutho uJohn Nangalibale Dube, namhlanje usuku luka 6 amanzi asinawo awaphumi kompompi ayehluleka, umeya wethu umxolisi Khawunda asigezile kuyimanje. Prof, let me come back to you, because these are basic needs. Communities say they've not seen running water since elections. Some are saying that schools don't have water. Others are even wishing that they could be drinking with cows, with animals. This is a basic right.
Exactly. I mean, it's unfortunate that we are in this situation. And I thought maybe we have learned one or two lessons during COVID. I mean, South Africa has done well during that time. And scientists were providing information to say this is how we need to manage things. But with regards to water, that's the same thing. We have got institutions that are conducting research, focusing specifically on water, for example, Water Research Commission and others. Research are out there, recommendations are out there, and we keep on engaging, I mean, with our policymakers or stakeholders to make sure that, I mean, we implement those outcomes. If you look at what they are requesting, they're not asking luxury things like BMW, Mercedes-Benz. These are basic stuff: water, energy, and sanitation, and so on. Why can't we move? Again, the issue related, highlighted by Dhesigen, implementation is a big thing. We've got the best plans, strategies, act, and so on. But I still, I mean, get frustrated because I was also part of the system 10 years ago. I was in government department trying to push stuff. And it seems like, I mean, we are just continuing with the same trajectory. So,
Benoit, is it a lack of will? Is it a lack of will to implement these particular great policies that we're hearing about?
I don't think it's a lack of will, because I don't think anybody wants to be in this real problematic era that we're in with all SOEs and local government failing. But let me stress, it's a local government mandate. It's a constitutional mandate to provide water through its water service authorities to the populace. GDP is also created and generated at local government and not national government. Yes, Sylvester alludes to national government is the overall custodian of water policy, law, and all the likes. These are fine, okay? But we also know that for the last decade or so, that the regulatory functions, the oversight functions, have not performed. And in actual fact, the no drop, the blue drop, and the green drop, so water losses, potable water quality and sewage quality, were actually withheld because the story was politically, and this was withheld at national government level, was politically unsavory. But it still does not excuse, so that's the oversight function that failed, but it still does not excuse local government for not carrying out its mandate. Yeah. So I think there's enough money in the system. It's a matter of the money being ring-fenced and going through to the services that people have paid for. Only 41%, so 59% don't. 41%, according to Stats SA last year, pay for water and sewage services. And that national account more or less balances, but the money is not getting through to the municipalities who are billing for the water. And so it's a local government issue primarily, oversight from national government. And what we've got to do is we've got to turbo boost both of those. Whether we've got the right skills or not, as Dhesigen says, we're able to create the right skills. I do believe we do have the right skills. Maybe it's like rainfall, it's in the wrong place at the wrong time. So we need to put that back together. And policy says we must embrace private sector involvement, as we're doing, for example, with trying to recover energy and logistics. We need to do the same in water, not talk. We need to do it. We need to do it at local government, at provincial government, and at national government. And we need to put the CMAs, the catchment management agencies, into place, because that's a decentralized local governance structure that has to be implemented. We must stop talking, we must do.
So, Dhesigen, when we were listening to what, reading some of the viewer comments, they say that in some of these places they're seeing dams are full, but they're not getting the water. In other places, they wish that they could be drinking with the very animals that some of their counterparts in various villages are drinking from, because they certainly do not have the water. Now, this, of course, is a situation that is unfolding in South Africa. We've spoken about the weather patterns. We've seen what is happening. But is there enough being done to prepare us to mitigate a crisis, a further crisis in the future?
Well, there are some movements in the right direction, and we must acknowledge that. I mean, for example, encouraging private sector participation through this new water partnership office that's been created in the DBSA is a good move. It is about bringing more players into the system, more skills into the system. But there's a tacit inappreciation, in my view, of the big changes that are required. And the changes are quite massive. I mean, we can't be investing in waterborne sewage system as part of the extension to get people into sanitation in an environment that is getting increasingly water scarce. And South Africa is a pioneering country in something called non-sewage sanitation, where you've developed the technology. We've got a fantastic group of scientists in this country that have worked out the solutions that other people are using. We need to mainstream it here. We need to have a break in the way we do things. And the third factor I want to put into the plate is that I think the people in charge don't have a sufficient appreciation of the high security risk associated with not giving people the water that's needed. We already know about the service delivery protests, but the next step to this, if the economy can't run because you can't get the water to the people because the energy systems are not enough to transport the water, you're going to have a genuine security crisis in the system. And we really need to use those arguments to shift the bar and make some radical decisions in South Africa.
And I want us, after this, from the break, I want us to look at solutions. What becomes the low-hanging fruit that we can deal with right now and to avert this particular crisis? Because as you say, Dhesigen, it's a huge worry. It's a huge security risk, and one wonders if anyone is listening. Mbukeli, siyabuya ke Dhesigen Naidoo. Mbukeli, sasiphetha ke sibheke isombululo ukuthi yini engenziwa to ensure access to clean drinking water as enshrined in our constitution. Prof, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about, for you, what is the low-hanging fruit that we can address right now?
In order for us to move forward, the water sector need to think in an integrated manner or in an exhaust way. Looking at what will be the implication in other sectors. Over and above that, there are technologies that have already been developed that could be used to monitor water quality, technologies that can assist us to improve, our infrastructure. They're out there. They've been developed using taxpayers' money. Why are we not using those technologies? We've got wetting front detectors. The agriculture sector has got decision support tools that assist them to reduce water consumption, but making sure that they produce enough food.
Sure.
So these are some of the things that we need to take off. And South Africans have got a tendency not to recognize technologies that have been developed locally. That's the problem.
And I wish that when we talk about this water issue next time, because we are going to have another conversation about this, we'll look at those particular technologies. Benoit, very briefly then for you, what becomes the low-hanging fruit that we can deal with right now?
Right now, so the cheapest water is non-revenue water. In Gauteng alone, we need to inject, and the private sector is waiting to do this. It has the funding, about 50 billion rand in round numbers. The economic multiplier, this is the good news, is 4 times that minimum. Okay, so that's 200 billion rand we can inject over the next 3 to 5 years into the Gauteng province. And then if you multiply that nationally, you'll see it's at least 3 to 4 times that. That's the good news. That's the low-hanging fruit. So let's get started.
Dhesigen?
Yeah, I want to take a bit of a long-term view because we need a long-term plan here. And the thing that needs to bring all of this stuff together, including the new climate resilient technological platform that we need, must be housed under something. And I think that something is organizing for us to develop a water and economic security tactical plan, not just a general strategy, but an actual step-by-step tactical plan and roadmap. This is what's going to get us out of this plight, and we'll get plenty of local and international partnership to help us through this. Thank you.
And it definitely sounds like a long-term one, and it's something that we can, in fact, start working on. Prof, 20 seconds, we don't have a lot of time. It does sound like what Dhesigen is saying, what Benoit is saying, are things that we can do right now.
Let's change our tactics, making sure that, we provide water to our people. We've got the potential, we've got the ability. Yes, climate change is an issue, population increases and so on, but that we shouldn't use that as an excuse. We must deliver, and our people just need basic services. That's it.
Basic services, and it doesn't get as basic as that, because these are basics that are enshrined in the Constitution. And Mbugeli, thank you so much to you for watching. Sibonge kakhulu ukuthi uhlanganyele kanye nathi nehambeli zethu. Umnumzana Dhesigen Naidoo obuya Presidential Climate Commission, no Professor Sylvester Mpandeli obuya Water Research Commission kanye nomnumzana Benoit Le Roy ongumphathi omkhulu South African Water Chamber. Mbugeli, asethemba ukuthi ingxoxo isazoqhubeka enkundleni zethu zokuxhumana ngoba ibaluleke kakhulu lengxoxo. Kanti futhi soke sizame nokuthi sifike la nikhona nikhuluma ngeindaba zenu ngenkinga zamanzi. Ubongiwe umakhumalo wakwazwane nethimba le Asikhulume, sithi nisale kahle.